Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon with Rabbi Matt Shapiro.
When I was in Israel this past week, we visited a remarkable organization called Adi Negev. Adi Negev is a massive facility with both residential and outpatient services designed to serve a wide variety of people, whether they're navigating disabilities or in need of recovery for different challenges. Their team goes to great lengths to ensure that each person there receiving care gets what they need. And one of the key components of their treatment is bringing patients from different areas of the facility into contact with each other. For example, an IDF soldier working on regaining use of his legs could be doing hydrotherapy in a pool right alongside a long-term residential patient navigating severe developmental challenges. As one prominently featured poster there said, "Lefa'amim ani domeh, lefa'amim ani shoneh, tamid ani shaveh." Roughly translated, that would be, sometimes I am the same, sometimes I am different, I always have equal value. One of the essential components of this center is how every person there is treated as a unique individual with their own treatment plan. And part of what makes this center so special is that there's a shared vision for all of the patients, a larger unifying vision that elevates the mission for everyone. In Miketz, our parsha this week, Joseph is faced with the challenge. After languishing in jail, he has the task of interpreting the dreams of the supremely powerful Pharaoh. Pharaoh, it seems, has two dreams in desperate need of interpretation. One about 7 healthy cows being consumed by 7 sickly and thin cows. The other with 7 healthy sheaves of grain being consumed by 7 other sheaves in significantly worse shape. And what does Joseph say in response? Chalom paro echad hu. Pharaoh's dream is one dream. These 2 dreams are one. Joseph presents to Pharaoh the interpretation we now know, that after 7 years of plenty, these dreams portend the 7 years of famine that will ravage the land. Joseph's genius here isn't that he's able to interpret just one of these dreams. It's that he's able to see the connections between the two of them. He's able to see the larger patterns, the themes, the points of connection that make seemingly disparate data points meaningful and significant. On this Israel trip, our guide Elchanan made a point of emphasizing multiple times that each person we spoke with, including him, shares only one perspective, provides just one set of stories. It's important to see each person's viewpoint as holding value and importance, but not to overgeneralize from the singular to the universal. Yet as we walked around Har Herzl, the National Military Cemetery in Jerusalem on our first day, and Elchanan told us stories of heroism from the War of Independence, he couldn't help but notice parallels between some of these stories and stories he had heard about from October 7th. Stories that illuminated history in ways he had never understood before. Those 2 historical narratives are separate narratives, one from the 1940s, the other from just over 2 years ago. It's important not to overgeneralize, to make sure to see the specifics. And these 2 narratives echo each other. They shed light on each other, adding resonance, bringing some elements into greater focus by seeing them as illustrating a larger whole. As we continued to walk around the cemetery, Elchanan noted for us that the section with the graves of soldiers who have died in this most recent war looks somewhat different. As many of you have seen, I know, there's a traditional uniform way in which the graves at Har Herzl are set up, looking almost like a bed, the headstone angled such that it looks like a pillow, the graves marked with pristinely manicured shrubs. And as we continued on to that newest section, we saw exactly what Elchanan described, that many of these graves did not have that same uniform look. Yes, they featured the same general style, but family and friends of the fallen had made many of them more individualized, with pictures or various mementos, even some beer bottles. A particularly vivid example to me was the grave of a 41-year-old father in that section. How did I know that he was a father? There were 3 small toy letters placed on the headstone. Aleph, Bet, Aleph, spelling Abba, father. Without that more personal touch, I might have noticed that his age then is my age now. But the loss was made that much more poignant by learning that he had been a father too. Military service in Israel is motivated by shared values, a sense of being connected to something larger than any one person, a vision that makes it possible for soldiers to serve, to protect, even to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And each of those soldiers is a unique person. In a well-known Mishnah from Sanhedrin, there's a metaphor provided to illustrate God's greatness, describing God as minting coins, but in a manner that's different than people do. When people mint coins, each coin made from that stamp emerges the same. But when God does so, they each come out differently, for no one person is the same. And yet, just before this idea is shared in that same Mishnah, we're also taught that we should remember that all of us, each person, comes from Adam, from a shared original ancestor. Why? So that no one should say, my ancestors were greater than yours. We are all, each of us, unique people with our own backgrounds, dreams, relationships, somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's father. And there's something bigger than us that connects us, a shared history. These hundreds of soldiers are each one individual soldiers. These soldiers are all part of one larger vision, one larger story. Our heaviest day on the trip was Sunday, when we visited a number of memorials honoring those who were killed on October 7th. And as we moved through the day, news reached us of the horrific anti-Semitic terror attack at Bondi Beach. Updates came in over the course of the day, shaking each one of us, adding an additional heavy pall to an already fraught day. As we went to the site of the Nova Festival and honored the memory of the victims there, it was nearly impossible not to see connections between these two events, which occurred just over 2 years apart. In both settings, a group of people gathered to celebrate, to rejoice, to connect, only to be interrupted by grotesque, unthinkable violence. These parallels came to a particularly painful point as we learned that a different tour group managed by the same company as ours, was a group of teens from Australia. And one of those teens was in the process of leaving the trip early. Why? Because her father was one of the victims that was killed in the attack. We were at the site of the Nova Festival to remember victims from one attack a little over 800 days earlier. We found ourselves simultaneously grappling with news of a different attack from just a few hours earlier. Events that in some ways mirror each other, with those anguishing echoes amplifying the pain and the loss and the terror. And the circumstances of each event are different, each with its own painful elements and ramifications. Each person who was tragically lost had their own story and needs to be remembered for who they each were. Each family member of a victim has their own grief. These two nightmares are in some ways the same nightmare. And each of these tragedies is its own painful, horrendous nightmare. It wasn't only darkness. There were moments of light, too. We saw organizations like Adi Negev helping so many people, or Shuvat Achim, essentially a pop-up nonprofit that has offered food and support to soldiers as they've entered and left Gaza. We also celebrated the first few nights of Hanukkah together as a group, whether we were lighting candles as just the few of us on the trip at our hotel, or walking around Tel Aviv, yes, even primarily secular Tel Aviv, with candles from Chanukiot proudly shining in the windows of coffee shops and retail stores. We got to enjoy celebrating together. And as Jews around the world continue over these next few days to celebrate the holiday, it's interesting to note that technically, the basic mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles is lighting just one candle each night for the entire household. It's not what comes to mind when we think of our own observances or the pictures we see of homes filled with candles, but at its most basic element, that's the expectation. But there's a halachic concept of hidur mitzvah, making a commandment beautiful, practicing it in a particularly mindful way. And on Hanukkah, this looks like having one candle for each member of the household each night. And for those who are particularly mindful and intentional, it looks like one additional candle per person per night. Likely what comes to mind when you think of your own practice. Just one candle is enough. That singular light speaks for itself. And we have the opportunity to bring more light, and doing so is praiseworthy. But whatever your practice is, we still say the same blessings. That first blessing, Lahadlik Ner Shel Chanukah, is noteworthy here. It's in the singular, Ner, rather than the plural, Nerot. However many candles we light, it's all for the same larger purpose. Pirsume Nisa, publicizing the miracle of Hanukkah, the remarkable fact that out of despair came hope, out of darkness came light. The 45 candles the 5 of us will have burning in our home tomorrow evening, they're actually, in some ways, the same candle, all lit for the same reason, over which we say the same blessing. And of course, they're each their own individual flame, beautifying the mitzvah, amplifying our celebration, bringing more light than just 1 or even 5 candles would. What makes this bat mitzvah, this simcha we're celebrating this morning, so special is that we're celebrating a moment for Rhea, a brand new Jewish adult, and her family, and her friends, and her community. And part of what makes it special is that this is part of a long line of celebrating, of ritual, part of a chain of tradition that holds us all. That's an essential part of exactly why it's meaningful. This Hanukkah, this Rosh Chodesh, this Shabbat, each of them are unique. There's never been a moment exactly like these. And they only really mean something because of the larger tapestry they're a part of, stretching back and, God willing, forward centuries and millennia. These rituals and celebrations are all just one chain of our tradition. And this bat mitzvah, this Shabbat, this Rosh Chodesh, this Hanukkah, they're each different. And that's what makes them so special. Every action, every event, every person is unique. And we also make sense of this world and can find meaning and solace when we see the connections between them. Joseph's genius was knowing when and how to see those connections. And we also have the obligation of seeing the differences between events, between people, to honor them and see them in their fullness. So let's build on the genius of Joseph. Yes, we need to see these moments and these historical events as part of a larger whole. And let's make sure to see each event, each celebration, each victim, each heroic sacrifice, each individual in need of care and support and love as the unique and holy embodiments of the divine that they are. That nightmare is one nightmare. That dream is one dream. Each nightmare is its own nightmare. Each celebration, its own celebration. Every dream is its own dream.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.